a very good morning to you. We are the Newsroom show. We are full, and today, well, we've got a very serious topic because it's a topic that's ripping South Africa apart.
Not only ripping South Africa apart, but it's also very sad, and we're going to have a number of people talking to us about the South African men. Yes, you, men, us. We are 5 times more likely to kill our female partners.
That is a shocker. What are your thoughts on that? 5 times more likely to kill our partners in South Africa. I was told by some of our female colleagues this morning that it's an extreme sport just to be a woman in South Africa, Elvis.
That's why we're asking the question, what are your views on that particular statement? 5 times more likely to kill our female partners.
Yes, we're also conducting a poll, of course, as we do every day. And we're talking about men are trash. You know, those of you that have interacted with this campaign. Of course, it's called a... Before we go there, I see we've got some tweets on our question. Do we have some tweets on the question?
Yes,
we do. Rumbu says, shocking.
Alfredinho says, the cowards. Strong men forgive and move on. Weak men, on the other hand, they hold grudges and they pay revenge.
Do we have many weak men then? I ask. Question more says, South African men are violent. But why?
That is the question. Matondo says, nothing new to that. It's been like that since the 70s. It's just that it's now reported. Well, as we heard also from one of our speakers, that these things are underreported and unreported.
Mielani Maton says, yes, I agree. The cause of all this death is money or cheating, and in the other hand, men are too jealous. Are you a jealous man? Are you jealous, Elvis?
I don't know, but jealousy lurks in all of us to a certain degree.
I suppose it does. I mean, I haven't really been pushed to the point. But let's look at the hashtag and the poll, because this hashtag is, well, some say it's negative, some say it's needed to shock men, to shock men into taking action. Is the men are trash a negative campaign, is what we ask ourselves.
Well, that follows hashtag rest in peace Karabo, of course, as you know, women abuse as well. 155 of you have voted already on the African continent as well as here in our beloved country, South Africa. 46% are saying yes, that campaign, men are trash, is negative. 54% are saying no, it's not.
It's a close run thing, isn't it? Sitaba Kwepe tweets us, he says, not all men are trash. Men protect women and children, only he's the real man. Yes, that's what real men do, my friend.
Freddie Whitehorn says, but those men are trash and they need to be recycled. Well, recycling bad men?
Lechasa, this will be interesting. Lechasa says, yes, it's negative. Real men don't kill innocent blood. Real men don't rape, but some are trash. Not all men. And he says, of course, rest in peace there.
Interesting one. Dion says, maybe true, but funnily, you wouldn't say your father's trash, would you? Huh?
What? For sure. You wouldn't say Nelson Mandela is trash, or Bishop Tutu, the like, for sure. I think this campaign, it served a purpose, and that was to shock men.
And it's also to engage. It's also to engage and to start that conversation, perhaps. But is that the belief from women? That's another question.
Yeah, that is the belief. Remember, though, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. So we should work together and not polarize each other further. We've got a lot of news on today, Elvis. Let's get working.
Gauteng MEC for Community Safety, Caesar Kela and Kosi Molobane, has visited Karabo Mukwena's family in Diepkloof in Soweto ahead of the slain 22-year-old's memorial service today. The reappointment, the much-awaited appointment of Eskom CEO Brian Molefi's position is now in doubt after the ANC ordered the Public Enterprises Minister Lynn Brown to rescind his appointment by the Utility Board. We'll watch that with interest. And the search for more bodies will resume this morning after at least 24 illegal miners died in an underground explosion at the Eland Shaft mine outside Welkom in the Free State Goldfields mine there. It's a worrying story. We'll also keep you updated on that one. These are some of your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front, and it's on the cusp of the PSL here in South Africa. It's either going to be Wits or Sundowns.
Well, it could also be Cape Town City. Don't forget, they've got a mathematical chance of actually getting in there with it. This is the penultimate round of matches. But before I get into that, I think the topic for today is one of the most important topics we've actually ever had on this show.
I agree. You're a father of girls, and think about Courtney Peters in Cape Town.
Yep.
She was found in a shallow grave over the weekend, 3 years old.
Yep.
These are the kinds of stories that tear us apart, I think.
No, 100%. I've got a girl and I've got a boy, and for me, like, it behooves me as a father to make sure they both grow up knowing that this can't happen, and they need to be part of the solution. So I think this is a good topic, and if I could, I would be tweeting the whole morning on this particular
We
show.
all need to engage with this conversation, Kendall, because it's a very important one for our country to move forward. Because men are not necessarily thrash, all of us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think that thing of like where South Africans are 5 times more likely than the global average to kill their partners is a big one. Good morning to you. Let's see if we can brighten up your day with a little bit of sports.
Because I think Changase was just holding him back.
The Absa Premiership is coming to a crack of an end as both log leaders Bidvest and defending champions Mamelodi Sundowns need a win tonight to gain the advantage over the other.
Then make his way forward and make his way forward with aplomb. 3-0, just too easy.
In the English Premier League, both Manchester City and Arsenal are just one step away from Champions League places for next season.
Ozil, it must be, it is. It's Alexis Sanchez.
Meanwhile, just days ahead of the French Open, an interesting twist in Rome.
Ladies and gentlemen, due to an injury, Ms. Sharapova is forced to retire.
Maria Sharapova retires from a second-round match at the Italian Open as she gets denied a wildcard entry into Roland Garros. All this and more later on for you in the Sports Bulletin about 10:40. But now it's back to Elvis, who's got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this morning. Friends and family of Karabo Mokoena will remember her in a memorial service which is expected to be held today. Mokwena's burned body was found in the northeast of Johannesburg. Mokwena's boyfriend, Sandile Montswe, has been charged with her murder. The 22-year-old's death has sparked nationwide outrage about the scourge of gender-based violence in the country. Meanwhile, the Gauteng police have set up a task team comprising 16 detectives to probe the spate of killings of women over the weekend. The death toll of women murdered in separate incidents in the past 4 weeks has risen to 10, following yesterday's positive identification of 3 more who were killed at the weekend. The task team was established to deal with crimes against women, including a spate of robberies, rapes and kidnappings that happened recently in Soweto. 5 bodies were recovered in Gauteng, 1 in the northwest, another in Limpopo, 2 in the Free State and another in KZN over the past 4 weeks. The distraught families of 2 friends who went missing in Johannesburg on Friday were at the Naledi mortuary yesterday, painfully identifying their loved ones. And that's our focus this morning, and we ask you the question in relation to femicide rates in this country as well as on our poll. Please participate in them. Meanwhile, the African National Congress has ordered the Public Enterprises Minister Lynn Brown to rescind Brian Molefe's return to the power utility as its CEO. Brown was told at the meeting in Johannesburg to revoke her decision to reappoint Molefe after she was summoned to Luthuli House. Now this comes as new allegations against Molefe emerge, this time from a former cabinet minister.
News last Friday that the Eskom board had decided to reinstate Brian Molefe into the position of CEO of Eskom took everyone by surprise. Public Protector Busiwe Mkhwebane says she was also surprised.
I was also surprised because when he left, he indicated that for good governance and he would want to clear his name. I can just say I'm surprised.
Mkhwebane says she will await the outcome of the court challenge to the stage of capture report by the government before deciding whether or not to reopen the investigation into Eskom contracts. Meanwhile, former Minister of Minerals Ngwakora Matlodi has claimed in a radio interview that Brian Molefe and Eskom chair Ben Ngubane tried to get him to shut down Glencore's Optimum mine in order to facilitate its acquisition by the Guptas. Ngubane has denied the claim.
We can't instruct a minister what to do. We take our problems to ministers. We ask for help. We've done that with the Treasury, with our own minister, with DOE, with DMR, when we have problems. Now, for a minister to claim that we actually made him take a decision about something is preposterous.
The ANC says it has referred the issue of Molefe's reinstatement to the government to deal with.
We did express unequivocally and we registered our discomfort with the decision, our unhappiness with the decision. The matter having been dealt with, it's now been referred to government for further processing.
However, Kodwa says the ANC's position that Molefe's reinstatement should be reversed remains unchanged. Bongani Muchwa, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The search for more bodies will resume this morning after at least 24 illegal miners died in an underground explosion at the Eland Shaft mine outside Welkom in the Free State Goldfields mine. Police spokesperson Thandi Mbambo says none of the men whose bodies were retrieved had worked for the mine. She says police have no idea how many bodies may still be underground. More than 60 illegal miners have died in the Free State mine since March. Mbambo says the cause of the explosion is being investigated. The High Court in Pretoria will hear arguments today on the application by the former Hawks head, Benning Ntlhameza, to interdict the police minister Fikile Mbalula. He wants Mbalula to allow him to go back to work while he's lodging an appeal. Mbalula appointed Ntlhameza's deputy, Yolisa Matakata, as the acting Hawks head, after the High Court in Pretoria ruled that Ntlhameza's appointment was irregular.
Ntlhameza revives his bid to keep his job, hoping to be reinstated pending his Supreme Court appeal.
As I'm talking to you now, all parties have filed their papers, being us and the other side. And last week, both parties had not done certain things according to the judge, and it's like a matter of the role.
Ntlhameza's SCA bid is expected to be heard early next month. He seeks to overturn a High Court ruling that his appointment be set aside. Police Minister Fikile Mbalula used the High Court ruling as the basis to fire Ntlhameza. General Ntlhameza's lawyers insist that their client will use every legal means available to fight for his job, an indication that the standoff between Mbalula and Ntlhameza is not ending anytime soon. Sipho Sturman, SABC News, Pretoria.
Your news for now. Now, our focus this morning is on women being killed in South Africa 5 times more likely. Let's start that conversation with Eben.
Yeah, obviously, a very good morning to everyone at home. It's something that I think that's close to all of our homes, if not our hearts. South Africa's female homicide levels, femicide, are 5 times higher than the world's average. That's according to a report by the Medical Research Council. Gender violence and femicide have again come under the spotlight in this country following the recent brutal killing of a Soweto woman, Karabo Mokoena. Her body was found burnt in a veld in Lyndhurst last month. Let's just take a look back at some of this and the known recent cases of femicide.
These are just some of the high-profile femicide victims in South Africa. The cases well publicized, but hundreds more go unnoticed. A random sample from the bizarre to the most brutal cases. In 2012, constructors stumbled on human bones at the house of convicted killer William Kuna. They belonged to his girlfriend, police constable Francis Rasoge, who had been missing for nearly a decade. In 2013, Paralympian Oscar Pistorius shot and killed his girlfriend, Riva Steenkamp, on Valentine's Day.
You fall in love with being in love with love.
He said he thought she was an intruder. In 2016, former Soweto community radio presenter Donald Sibulai was sentenced to 20 years for murdering his girlfriend, Dolly Shabalala. And just last week, ANC Youth League official Patrick Wisani a similar punishment for beating his girlfriend to death with a sjambok.
Cases you can see very clearly there was a history of domestic violence. There are others where people can't understand why the murder happened. It just came out of the blue. Everybody thought the couple was getting along just fine. So those cases, it might be very difficult to see warning signs or to do anything. But that group of women who go to court and ask for protection orders and then die, that is a group we need to look at much more closely.
The latest victim, 22-year-old Karabo Mokoena, killed, her body dumped in a field and set alight. Her brutal death sparked an outcry on social media. A 27-year-old forex trader boyfriend, since arrested, he allegedly confessed.
The mother and the father has been in contact with the boy, and the boy was saying, no, I haven't seen the girl in a long time and everything. And, you know, we were so sure that it was not him. So until, you know, the early hours of this morning, when he confessed to say that it was him. Yeah.
According to the Medical Research Council report, a woman is killed every 8 hours by a partner in the country.
The most common reason why women get killed, and this is pretty much the pattern worldwide, is out of jealousy. The partner suspects that she's having an affair, and sometimes their beliefs are perfectly irrational. And, you know, there's often a history of abuse going on as well because there are these jealous suspicions.
We have this code of silence. That it's not my business, I will not get involved. I think it's important for us to become positive whistleblowers because, and the instances where you know that you'd see this individual, you'd see your colleague, you'd see your neighbor, it's important for all of us to actually speak out and say, look, I will not remain silent.
And renewed calls for urgent intervention.
People that must say this must come to an end is men. They must rise to the occasion and stop this.
But will they heed the call? Mangoba Mchunu, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Yeah, South Africa's been rocked by all of these, so we've asked the question because we look at the numbers, and the numbers, they don't lie. South African men are 5 times more likely to kill their female partners than the global average. What are your thoughts? That was the question that we put forward to you today. South African men are 5 times more likely to kill their female partner. Tipansu has tweeted us and says, Newsroom, women's rights in South Africa are non-existent. Even reporting rape at a police station is a joke for the SAPs, or even the perpetrators going free. That I'll put to the Deputy Minister of Justice in the next hour, John Jeffrey. Exceptional Keep says, Newsroom, alcohol abuse, drugs and bad influences are the most contributing factors. Also, many sex partners make it worse as some men lack responsibility. Jabulani Motlong says, Newsroom, but mostly it's jealousy. Most men take their partners as their possessions. It's wrong. Well, nice one there. Mpumi Dlamini says, even more than what is reported. Even more than that, says Mpumi. More than 5 times. John Snow asks a question. He says, has it become a cultural thing? Violence against women and children. What do you mean, John Snow? Everyone's killing them. Everyone's killing their partners. Yeah? Why does no political party take the problem head on? Janssen wrong. He says, John Snow, remember Oscar Pistorius? Remember that guy? It's not just a cultural thing, as you asked the question. It's something that faces all of us here in South Africa.
The femicide rate 5 times higher than the global average. The scourge of femicide, or women being killed by their partners, are continuing here in South Africa. Police have recovered the body of a woman who'd been reported missing in the Walutsi area outside Louis Trichardt. The woman's disappearance led to violent protests, with community members burning a police station and 2 police vans. 21 people were arrested. Police says the deceased boyfriend led them to a spot in the bushes where her body had been hidden. That murder follows that of Karabo Mokoena of Soweto, who was also assaulted before being burned to ashes, allegedly by her boyfriend. Now, research proves that the chances of a woman being murdered by someone that she knows or is in an intimate relationship with are much higher than any other type of murder. The motives are often financial, adultery, or love triangle, or maybe there's more. For more on this, we are joined by Lisa Vetten, who's a gender activist. Very good morning to you, Lisa.
Good morning. Thank you.
Ms. Vetten, first and foremostly, a woman in South Africa is killed every 8 hours. That's 3 women a day, so to speak. What does that suggest to us as South Africans?
Well, it suggests that we have a problem because, as you noted earlier, our homicide rates for women killed by their partners is 5 times that of the global average. But we do have to say that in many countries of the world, there hasn't been this kind of research. But I think we also have to locate that within our high levels of violence generally. Because not only do we have very high levels of women being killed by their partners, you also have very high levels of men killing each other. So I think if we look at these two figures together, they tell us something about the state of masculinity in South Africa and our need to do something to break this link between masculinity and violence, because it's not only doing harm to women, it's also doing a great deal of harm to men.
Now, the stats that I quoted I think dates back to 2009. Why don't we have updated stats yet?
Because the police don't collect this sort of data. You know, when they put out their statistics every year, they don't disaggregate victims by gender, and they also don't record the relationship between perpetrator and victim. So you just don't know. In order to have this information, you actually have to go out and do the work yourself, going through police dockets or mortuaries.
Does that then also suggest that the numbers could be higher?
The numbers could very well be higher, because I think what we have to take into account is that homicide rates in South Africa started increasing again in about 2012. For the last 3 years, we have seen them being on an increase. So it is possible the rate has gone up.
Now, before femicide is committed, it seems that women are normally afraid to call for help. Why is that the case?
Well, you know, the unfortunate problem is we don't know enough about all of the cases. In probably about a third, we can see there was a history of domestic violence beforehand. But for the other 2/3, we don't know. And this tells us something about the quality of police investigation, that they don't ask these questions. It sometimes also perhaps might tell us something about the secretive nature of domestic violence, that it's kept hidden. But I think also that some of these murders, we just don't know what happened. There is no history of violence. The couple appear to get on. Family and friends are taken by complete surprise. And the man feigns a complete amnesia. He cannot remember what he did. So we have different types of murders, which I think is important to recognize, because it means we need to have different ways of trying to intervene with them if we want to try and do something about the problem.
So it seems that many of these cases are either underreported, and if they are reported, it seems like after a while the woman would retract the cases from the police. Why do you think is that the case? You know, domestic violence is a complicated problem to deal with, and it needs lots of different sorts of solutions. Unfortunately, in South Africa, we offer women a protection order or arresting the man, and that's it. We don't take cognizance of the fact that many women do not have alternative accommodation, and we have a housing crisis in South Africa, so they're not first on the list for alternative housing. We have very high rates of unemployment. We don't have good job training schemes that women can go to, especially if they're financially dependent on their partners. So I think if we don't look at the economic dimensions of domestic violence, we're not going to address the problem. Plus, I think we also underestimate that there are strong feelings between this couple. A lot of women still hope their partners will change. So that's why they withdraw the charges. And I think we also have to recognize that many women are terrified of their partners. The second most common reason precipitating women's murder is them trying to leave or end the relationship. And that's something we should never forget when we keep on saying, oh, but why doesn't she leave? The answer is because it's very dangerous for her to do so, and the irony is she might just be safer with him for that point in time. Let's talk about motives. In my introduction, I mentioned financial, adultery, or even perhaps a love triangle. Are that the only motives for such a murder? Not at all. The most common murder tends to be motive is jealousy. So the suspicion that the woman might be having an affair. That tends to trigger homicides. Next is leaving, wanting to end the relationship. The third most common motive probably has to do with women not obeying the man or behaving in the way he wants her to. So not cooking on time, not washing his clothes, not keeping the children quiet, going out with her friends when he didn't want her to. So those are very much motives about who's in control and who makes the decisions in the relationship. And then, of course, as you mentioned, there are the financial motives. And then I think there are the cases where you just don't know what happened. And the man is not going to tell you either because, for legal reasons, he's claiming he has no memory. What does patriarchy play in fueling domestic violence, especially here in South Africa?
You know, I think it creates the basis and the conditions for violence to occur, because of course not everybody who grows up in a patriarchal society goes on to be violent, but it lays the base. And I think when you add to that problems such as somebody possibly having a history of childhood neglect and abuse, and this doesn't just happen to poor men, this happens to middle-class men as well, a lack of attachment, a sense of love. If they're abused themselves, that is often not a very, when you combine that with the patriarchal society that encourages men to believe they should always be in charge, that they're the one who makes the decisions in the relationship, you are setting up a very dangerous problem, especially if you still add on top of that a criminal justice system that isn't always responsive, police that don't always come, neighbours who turn the other way, and family members who will say, go back, give him another chance. In our family, we don't have divorces. Go back, give him another chance. Put those together and you have a dangerous situation.
Patriarchy versus woman empowerment in the 21st century. How did the two clash?
You know, we have quite shallow ideas about women empowerment in South Africa that can often, unfortunately, I think, be reinvented in quite patriarchal terms. I mean, I've seen a lot of women's empowerment being reinvented on how to dress nicely and how to wear makeup and how to go for a good job interview, and that's being presented as women's empowerment. That's a very shallow way of trying to understand it. What is not working as the way it should, and where I think we should be focusing on women's empowerment, is doing something about high rates of women's unemployment. We're talking about radical economic transformation in South Africa, but it has no gendered dimensions. It doesn't recognise the kind of work that women do. It doesn't recognise the gender pay cap. And obviously, it doesn't create any kinds of solutions as to how we deal with that. So unless we talk about that, I think much of our talk about women's empowerment tends to be awfully superficial and cosmetic.
15 seconds. How do we resolve some of these issues?
We make the police more responsive to domestic violence. Friends and family do not force women to go back. And when they see their friend or their husband or their son behaving abusively, they say to him, stop that. And I think we also create good services so that women have somewhere to go where they can be safe and they can take their children with them, so there are programs that children don't repeat the cycle of violence.
Ms. Vetten, I thank you so much for your time and joining us here in studio.
Thank you.
That was gender activist and researcher Lisa Vetten here in studio.
That's the tale of the tape, as it is. What an interesting interview. Now, I'll do after the break, I'll talk about masculinity, but of course we're running a poll and around the Men Are Trash campaign, Elvis, and we're asking if this campaign, if it's negative, if it's a negative one. Some say, no, it was needed in order to shock men.
Now, this follows the death of Karabo Mokoena, and of course, that's the focus point this morning. Are men really thrashed? That's the question that we pose to you. 186 votes in, 53% are saying no. Now, those numbers has been turned around there, Eben.
Yeah, they're turning around a little bit. It's not a negative campaign. It says 47%, but
53% are saying yes.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
Men needed to get a wake-up call, in a way. And you know, I'm of the view that darkness can't drive out darkness. But if it's for a purpose like this, to shock and wake up.
And to start the conversation.
Yeah, and start the conversation for sure. I do it all the time on my Facebook page anyhow, shock people, and then they unfriend me, Elvis. So, you know, that's, well, that's how it works. We have to provoke.
And they don't write back to you that you are thrash, is it?
No. Provocateurs, but you're tweeting us. Bonakele says we need to stand together as a society to guard ourselves against these monsters. Community policing is needed and neighborhood watch. Thank you, Bonakele. I like that tweet because we have to take responsibility individually for this thing.
Tando says, I think that this campaign is just a publicity stunt of which is working so far. So women need to stop protecting their abusers.
Hardcore. Hardcore. Lechasa says, yes, it's negative. The state is saying our fathers, brothers, grandfathers are trash. Let's be realistic, says Lechasa. Well, I think some learned opinions say men shouldn't be so sensitive about this and shouldn't feel it's an attack on them. But this tweet?
Well, some would say you need to put on those big old panties and face the music. Well, this one from Men Against Women again, that's Tando says, yes, it is negative. You know, I have realized that most women who are in abusive relationships are women that are independent.
Independent.
Are not
independent.
Independent
is the secret. Women who are dependent financially. And maybe that's kind of the blesser phenomenon and all this kind of thing that kind of play out like that. If you are a money slave, then you'll be treated like a slave all over. Lubuya North says, not all men are trash. Of course not, Lubuya, I'm not trash. I'm a good father, I'm a good husband, I'm a good citizen of this country. But that's me, that's my story. We all need to make a contribution somehow. Let's go to social media quickly and take a look at what are some of the other things that you have to look at. We start with the alleged murder. Of course, 2 girls. 15-year-old Mbuyiselo Nombeo was reported missing several days ago. Her burnt body was found in Klerksdorp now, here in the Northwest Province. Then, in the Western Cape, a shocking story. 3-year-old Courtney Peters, who went missing 10 days ago, while her body was also found. You can find comments on all of these cases under the hashtag #MenAreTrash, which we will also be discussing continually on the show today. Now, following hashtag Karabo Mokwena's memorial, which is being held today, mind you, it is believed that she was killed by her partner. You saw the story a little bit earlier, very interesting and very nice. We'll repeat that package in the next hour. Now, on a positive note, the tourism in Durban is taking place in Durban this week, promoting our beautiful country, our stunning beaches, and simply discussing how we can better improve our tourism industry. That's in Durban 2017. Of course, lots of people are talking about hashtag SASA, as it seems that there's still no clear plan going forward, and no one has been appointed to take over the cash paymaster services when their contract ends next year. People are also talking about the debate around religion in schools. Yes, there is talk that traditional Christian activities such as prayer times or singing hymns should be taken out of the system to promote religious equality. We're going to talk about this next week because we know you are passionate about this whole thing. Religion in school, yes. Should one religion be pushed ahead of all others? Should it all just be taken out of the curriculum? We'll talk about that next week. But our picture of the day, well, we had a lot of discussion around this picture, actually. I think it's borderline racist because it's not only a color thing. This one from Nziki, who says, the black woman is rapidly becoming an endangered species, and talking specifically about Sinukolo Mafevuka, of course, who was found in a toilet, stuffed in a toilet in Khayelitsha, mind you. Personally, I think this picture is borderline. I was convinced by my colleagues that it paints a picture of what is real right now. Let's take a look at our comment of the day. This one comes from Mpo, and well, he talks about the religion in school scenario that we just mentioned. He said children come from different families with different beliefs. Teachers can't accommodate them all, so rather don't do it. We thought that was a great tweet with regards to hashtag religion in schools. We're going to talk about that at length next week, but right now we've got the most important story I think in South Africa is, well, men are trash and violence against women. But let's go to the courts quickly. We'll start in Durban, where murder accused Sean Rooster Pillay is expected back in the regional court there. Of course, he's accused of killing VJ Veronica Moodley in Shawcross in December of last year. Moodley's body was found in a disused car at her home after she'd been missing for weeks. Pillay abandoned his bail application in March for the 3rd time. Then in Klerksdorp, the suspected killer of a 15-year-old girl is expected to appear in the magistrate's court there after the girl's burnt body was found at nearby Joburton in the northwest. Mbuyiselo Mbeo went missing last Friday. In Cape Town, the suspected killer of 3-year-old Courtney Peters from Elsies River is expected to appear in the Goodwood Magistrates Court. The little girl's body was found in a shallow grave in Epping at the weekend. She'd been missing for more than a week after disappearing from the Salburu area in Elsies River. And it's not on purpose that all of the stories in the court today are about violence against women and children. It's no coincidence. We're going to take a short break. We're going to come back and talk about men are trash and why we have a problem with masculinity in South Africa.
Children's rights and health are a priority in the journey of good health.
All children should have access to adequate health care, not only curative but preventative as well.
How to identify ADHD on children.
ADHD is a childhood disorder which manifests with the symptoms of hyperactivity, impulsivity, and/or inattention.
Is breastfeeding still a vital nutrition to babies even today?
Breastfeeding for the first 6 months of life is absolutely crucial.
Catch Health Talk with Dr. Sello Mutawung every Saturday from 9 till 10 a.m.
The recent hashtag, Men Are Trash, has ignited a social media storm. It has split men and women even beyond the boundaries of social media, some would argue. The hashtag came about soon after the grisly discovery of a burnt body of a woman believed to be Karabo Mokoena. She went missing after she was last seen leaving a Santa nightclub. Now, her death sparked national and even international outrage when news spread that her boyfriend had been arrested in connection with her disappearance and then subsequent killing. Soon thereafter, details emerged that she had acid poured over her body and was necklaced. She was burnt beyond recognition. What role should us men play in fighting femicide? Well, we invited Professor Kopano Ratele, an academic in the study of masculinity, to explore the importance of the hashtag Men Are Trash. A very good morning to you, Professor. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning, Eben.
Men are trash. Why is it important?
Well, this is a provocative statement, and I think some of us men take it personally, have responded personally that it means you are trash. But I've been thinking about people like Bishop Tutu or Tabu Makhoba. Clearly, a hashtag like Men Are Trash is not referencing men like that. And I don't think one should confine it to the personal. It is a social problem. Women are trying to provoke us to react and respond to the fact that in this country, the levels of violence against women, gender-based violence, are unacceptably high, and men have to respond to this.
Martin Luther King taught us that darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. This kind of campaign, some call it a negative campaign, isn't there the threat of polarizing men and women even further and causing damage?
Well, social media tends to do that. That something that could have been spoken in living rooms and lounges at Shebeen's is now blown up into a national problem, a global question. And indeed, it is negative. But once again, if you think that the problem is really the fact that somebody like Karabo Mokoena was murdered in the way she was murdered and burned, that in this country we have high levels. I mean, we accept this fact that South Africa has high levels of violence against women. So the negative part about that women are reacting and calling men out, should not make us focus only on that. We should, acknowledge that this is rather a negative campaign, but some of us at least have to respond without the hysterics discourse. We should say, generalization are not quite helpful, but what can we do as individuals, as a society of men?
Professor, why is a woman 5 times more likely to be killed by a partner here in South Africa?
There's a whole lot of reasons. They include our history. They include the fact that the criminal justice system is not as effective as it should be. And I keep on wondering, for somebody who's also on Twitter, the Minister of Police, that the first thing I would do when I come into the office, knowing the kinds of violence against women in the country, I will bring a whole lot of teams. I'll bring professionals, I'll bring academics, I'll bring women to tell me about their experiences, and I'd form this into a national program to tackle this problem, because indeed it involves history, it involves our contemporary society, it involves inequality, it involves gender attitude, it involves patriarchal masculinities.
Prof, I want to talk to you about what's happening in our schools, because I'm a father to 4 girls, and they're in school in various stages, and the narrative is the same. Boys are quite aggressive in school. The latest incidents, for instance, with my 10-year-old, she was thrown in the face with a solid pine cone by a boy that liked her, and they constantly harassed them. What is happening in our schools? Because the picture that me as a father am seeing is a little bit hopeless.
You know, schools also don't seem to take gender-based violence and gender attitude as seriously as they should. But clearly what just happened to your daughter is unacceptable. And every time I see, I as a father, and I think this is another way we could be tackling this. As a father, every time I would ask my son, who did you play with today? And he would tell me that he played with Muzamil or all his friends. And I'd say, didn't you play with any girls? What I'm trying to instill in my boy, that you can play as well with girls as you can play with boys. But I'm trying to instill even something deeper, that gender equality, that treating others as your equals without violence is critical, specifically in a country such as this, where you need to inculcate in boys at home and particularly at schools, because kids spend 6-8 hours at schools, and schools should be taking this much more seriously than they do. It should be a national program. I know that the Department of Education have done task teams over the years. I was part of that in 2005, but there is no momentum. There's no a constant reinforcement of the messages we want to inculcate in our kids at school levels and at the national level.
What's happening at home, Prof? Are our fathers home enough? Are we getting our fathers to be home enough and helping bringing up boys and helping them deal with the problems we're facing? We always talk about masculinity. Is it that masculinity problem we have?
Yeah, but this is a really good question. And I'm part of a program, a radio program that tries to do that. Remember that 67% of kids don't live with their fathers. And this is already a problem in South Africa. So even when we're talking about presence, the fact that you don't have men, adult men, fathers, living with their kids is a serious problem. I know that other countries have gone the radical way because, well, this starts off with the fact that some subpopulations of our country can't get married, so they can't live with their kids. And so there's a social, cultural problems, challenges involved with this. So first of all, we have to encourage fathers to be present in their children's lives. I mean, this is the basic part. When they're in the family, when they're in their home, they should be emotionally present. They should ask, have talks with their kids. And this is a simple fact that parents tend to spend more talk time with girls than with boys. So boys and fathers and boys and mothers have to add some more talk time in their lives, because we let boys in particular to spend time outside, and fathers in particular are not emotionally present, specifically with regard to their boys, but also with regard to their girls.
Prof, you've got 30 seconds to tell us quickly. Today we remember Karabo Mokoena. How do we make sure that these deaths are not in vain?
That this death should be mourned. I mean, this is a really important part. In our country, we tend to live with this hysteria. Every week, you have a litany of cases of women being murdered by their boyfriends, by their husband. But part of the problem is that we don't mourn. And part of the problem is, of course, as a lot of people say, is the criminal justice system has to work to protect women constantly, every day, 24 hours a day.
Thank you, Prof. Always great to talk to you. And you always give us a little bit of hope. Thank you very much. That's Professor Kopano Ratele. He's an academic and an expert in the study of masculinity. And he always tells us that our problem is a masculine one, but it's not an insurmountable one.
Welcome back. Now, we're conducting a poll today. This follows the death of Karabo Mokoena. And of course, we're asking you the question, is the hashtag men are trash a negative campaign? That's the question. You'll see the hashtag rest in peace Karabo, Bongeka Pungula, not in my name, Femicide, SABC News, and women abuse. Now, so far, we have 230 votes in. You have 22 hours still to vote. It's split right in the middle. Now, this campaign has split men and women, of course, right in the middle. That story surrounding the death of Karabo Mokoena has left many South Africans in a tailspin, really, and many upset, and others have brought to the limelight the account of Alexandra Bukideen, who survived death on her way from Amaponya Mall. Now, everyone is against the behaviors by men, or some men, towards women, and referred to these unjust episodes as devilish, stupid, evil, and destructive. Many were sad and hurt to hear of Mokwena's death, and likewise, Bukelwa Morani's story, which is very closely related to Mokwena's. Bukelwa shared her story on Twitter to raise awareness about how she escaped death by an inch. And now she joins us in studio to share her experience. A very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning.
First and foremostly, I know it's painful, but can you share with us your ordeal and what happened on that fateful day?
Okay. So I was traveling from the mall, Maponya Mall, going back home. And because I take public transport, I use taxis, I have to connect to another taxi. So yeah, the first taxi dropped me off at Barra Rank. And as soon as I got off, I noticed that there were like 4 taxis left and the rank was very empty at that time. So yeah, I started walking towards the taxis, and this car came and parked in front of me. I was like, oh no, it's none of my business. People park anywhere. So a few steps after walking, after taking a few steps, I noticed that the guy came behind me, and he grabbed me from behind, and he said I should not do anything stupid, I will get hurt, and I should just get in the car. And that's when I decided, let me just do as he says, because I don't know what he has behind me. He could have a gun, he could have a knife, and he's telling me to get in the car, So I did as he said. And while he was driving, he was
so it's just the two of you?
Yeah. So he was holding on to my wrist, and he was driving and swearing at me, telling me that he was gonna rape me and go kill me. And yeah, after he took a turn at BP Garage, he went into this dark road. Luckily, I'm very fond of the area. I know Deep Kloof very well. So I know that road leads to like a veld, yards and yards of tall grass, and it's very scary. So yeah, I decided, I was looking outside the window at some point, and he let go of my wrist, and he turned up the music in his car. And I looked outside the window, and I saw that the door was unlocked. And I thought to myself, I just have to jump, and that's it.
So you jumped out?
Yeah, I tried to I struggled with opening the door. And, but while I was trying to open the door, he kept hitting me, and he held on to my arm again. And yeah, at that point, I was like, my head was looking over the roof of the car, and I just jumped. Obviously, because he still had my hand, the car dragged me for a couple of seconds, and when I got up, I just started running.
Now, these are some of your pictures of the day after, is that correct?
Yeah, this was me before, and yeah, this was the day after I got discharged from hospital.
How did you overcome this brutal incident? And did you escape from that when you were running through the veld all by yourself?
Yeah, he made 3 U-turns to try and find me, but I hid in the bushes, you know, and I covered myself with grass so that he couldn't see me. But eventually I got to the garage, and that's when I found help, and they took me to the hospital. So I've been able to overcome this whole incident through support from my family and support from friends as well.
Yeah. Did you get to the police station eventually to report the case, and how were you received?
I went to the police station at Diepkloof, and the first thing they asked was, is he my boyfriend? And I'm like, I explained to you that he was a complete stranger. He came behind me and abducted me. And they asked me the thingy, the car module and car registration. I was like, I couldn't have seen the car registration. I mean, when did I get time to look at the registration? So, and they haven't given me a case number.
Up until today?
Up until today.
How long ago was this again?
February 12th. And they haven't done anything really. Nobody has called me, nobody has said anything. And I said to them, you know what, because that where we were headed to is a very dark and creepy place, please go there with your dogs and check if there are no other dead bodies there, you know. They said to me, it'll take time. It's a long procedure. We can't just take our policemen and, you know, I was just like, please try, maybe there could be somebody there, else.
Did you do a follow-up with the police in relation to the case? Did you go back to the police station to inquire?
I called them, but the detective was never around when I called. So I just, you know, gave up as well and said to myself, I will get help somewhere else.
Do you feel safer walking around right now at night?
No, I don't. Like, if somebody walks behind me, I run. If a car parks next to me, I run. I really don't feel safe. And with all these incidents happening where others were being abducted by a quantum, I really don't even feel safe taking public transport, you know. I just sit at home and...
Did you get any counseling?
I have gone to 2 people, but like I always tell them, the best counselor is me, you know, and I'm trying to stay positive all the time about this. I mean, if I didn't speak out about this incident, I wouldn't have been able to inspire a lot of women.
Now, we're asking the question to our viewers this morning in relation to the hashtag men are trash, which we're asking, is it a negative, perhaps, a connotation to what men are perceived to be? What are your thoughts after your brutal
incident? Well, I try to explain this on social media, but the men that we speak of are the men that rape women, the men that beat up women, the men that abduct women. You know, those are the men that we speak of. There are still some great and amazing men out there who are doing good. And we are just saying these are the men that are doing bad things, are trash. Not all men are trash.
Not all men are trash.
Not all men are trash.
Now, this particular campaign, how do you think women can learn from not only just your experience, but overall from this particular hashtag?
I think they just have to be safe all the time and look out for, because before I didn't pay attention to these social media posts when people said somebody's missing, somebody was raped. I was like, it's another story, you know, but it's true. These things happen, so you must pay attention to them and be safe. And I'm just trying to organize a sponsor to give me pepper spray so I can hand them out to women. I think having such is very important. Yes, having at least a pepper spray or a taser when you walk around is very safe, especially if you take public transport.
I just want to go back quickly to the incident because we haven't got much time. On the night when you were abducted by the gentleman who walked me out, you said there was 4 taxis. Was there any other help? Did you maybe not think at that point in time to scream out for help?
At that time when he told me that I would get hurt if I do anything stupid, I thought, you know what, he might be right.
Do you think any differently now?
Yeah, sometimes I think, you know, I could have screamed or something, you know, But I was like, maybe this was meant to happen so that people learn from my experience. And I can teach others, and I can teach women to be safer.
Bukelwa, all the best of luck, and thank you so much for sharing and telling us your story this morning here on the Newsroom.
Thank you very much for having me.
That was Bukelwa Morani, a victim that escaped and survived a near-death ordeal. And that's why, of course, we're asking a number of questions around this morning. Question of the day for you is, South African men are 5 times more likely to kill their female counterparts. That's 5 times more, people. Would like to find out your thoughts. Let's take a look what's happening on the Twitter handle as well as on the Facebook page. This one says, Sibarashe Ibn, women needs to study their partners before they become victims. It's easy to discover violent men, says Sabarashi. That's his contention.
It is, but there's a different dynamic in that, as we saw a little bit earlier, where we talk about independent. When you're not independent, you become a slave and beholden to a man. And we should bring up our daughters to be more independent, I think.
Yes.
Jonas tweets us, he says, South Africa is a dangerous place to raise a girl child. Fathers must check criminal records of their daughters' boyfriends now. I'll certainly do that, to be honest.
I think it's a great idea. Bring your paperwork to the table.
Listen, I don't play. I don't play. I've got 4 daughters, my friend. They must come with a
clearance certificate.
A certificate of clearance for being a human being, I think.
Lesoko says he needs to pray very hard for South African men. I wonder who is that? This needs a divine intervention. Or we need to pray very hard for South African men. I think that was what Lesoko trying to say.
This one from Ikonanatso was, he says, governments must bring back the death penalty. Oh, are we allowed to discuss that? Together with our African way that she took away. Abusive men are weak-minded cowards, not men, he says. Yes, tough. He says, tough action.
Yeah, no tough talk. Alex Matapo says, there are those who are born or raised under violence, and that is why we see this type of violence in our country.
67% of children in South Africa are brought up without a father, and that is the statistic that I think that is the most poignant in all of this.
Very poignant, because that means a lot of fatherless children out there not being guided by the head of the household to show you the way forward.
Absolutely. A father would never bring up his child or his boy to rape and kill women. And if you are in their lives and make a contribution daily, all these social ills go away. But we'll be back at 10 o'clock with more. We'll talk to the Minister about, well, issues around the police and why the police are accused of being lackadaisical when dealing with these issues. So stick around. After 10, we'll have more.
Saying that the former minister is now endorsing Ramaphosa as the next president. Campaign time, Prof?
Yeah.
So early.
Let's at least accept that people have a right to expressing themselves in terms of who they support.
But what is lacking very seriously is that there is no that leadership role that is played by the leadership to say, we haven't opened succession and let us deal with those that are campaigning openly, because we haven't opened it as the leadership of the ANC.
What we need in this country is that we need a ruling party or leading party to be able to engage with issues that affect the people.
Our people campaign openly. It weakens the organization. In fact, it makes the policies of the ANC even more popular.
Stay tuned to Media Monitor and catch on analysts unpacking top stories every Sunday from 9 a.m.
Well, a very good morning and welcome to AM News Live at 10:00 hours across all Central Africa regions.
A fitting send-off for a revolutionary giant, a life dedicated in service of the people.
The result means that the Swallows are out of the ABC Municipal League and drop to the amateur fourth tier of South African football, the SAB League.
Tune in on AM News every Saturday and Sunday from 10 hours.
Welcome back. It's just gone 10 o'clock. It's Central African time. It's the morning. Myself and Kendall Machamati will be with you for the next hour. Of course, today we're talking about femicide. Kendall, it's a shocker, isn't it?
Heavy subject matter, and it cuts to the bone, and I think it affects every single person in this building and everybody watching this show.
When I see the pictures, I see young men, young South African men in the dock who are accused of killing their partner. This is the stat. South African men are 5 times more likely to kill their female partners. What are your thoughts is what you're asking on that, Kendall. What are your thoughts on that? 5 times more likely in South Africa to be killed by your man.
It's heartbreaking. It's tragic. We're bringing up daughters, we've got sisters, and we've got mothers. And it's something that we as men need to take charge of and actually find a solution to.
Here the tweets, Simbarashe Tiki tweets us, says, I'll talk about the hashtag men are trash. Of course, we spoke about that earlier. Women must boycott abusive relationships. Even the boyfriend abuses them once physically. Yes, walk away.
Sukile Makeke says, how can trash fix speak about against trash? How can trash speak out against trash? Then women are saying the blind must lead the blind. They must rename the campaign.
Yes, they must, Sukile. I agree with that, because darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light. We need to bring light to these issues, not more darkness.
Vincent Maboja says, police don't care. They're trash. Women loves criminals. Their criminals are trash.
Oh, that brings up another dynamic. Women love criminals because criminals have stuff. Criminals have trinkets and shiny things, don't they?
Now, Pyrrhic victory is all of that, but I think there's a lot to be spoken about. There are lots of underlying issues and subtext in all of this.
Interesting to hear your thoughts. It's great to hear some different perspectives as they come in via social media, on Twitter and the like, of course, on our Facebook page as well. But we're running a poll, as we do every day, and we talk about men are trash exactly. Kendall, are you trash, or is this just a negative campaign?
I don't believe I'm trash, but I think what this is doing is actually making us talk about it.
It's shock value. That's what it's doing. It's shocking men into hopefully taking action. And 247 votes in now. It's about 50-50. And I think that's how South Africa is split around this men are trash hashtag is about 50-50. And could it be men against women? If it is, that's maybe the thing we didn't want to happen.
Even I'll tell you what, in the newsroom right now, as we have in this show, there's a massive debate going in little circles all over the newsroom. So definitely a 50-50 is roundabout right.
Chachelo tweets us, he says, this campaign is very wrong. Don't say the abusive men are trash. Yes, they say that's very clear. If they say men am included and men not trash, they provoke men. Chachelo, I can't. I'm not from that school, my friend. I can't read these things, man. You tweet me words.
Vincent Mabocha says, police don't care. They're trash. Women loves criminals. Their criminals are trash. Hashtag man are not trash.
Jonas Poshoko says, I'm so ashamed to call myself a South African man. We are really trash. Jonas, some days I feel like that, my friend. I do. But other days I have to dust myself off and be a father to my girls.
And Kalani comes up with like a fantastic way. Trash, recycle, reuse.
Yes, men can be recycled. That's the message. I like that. Women must boycott abusive relationship. We've had that one from Simbarashe a little bit earlier.
No, very interesting, and I quite enjoy that our viewers are engaging so actively on this topic.
Fantastic. It's always, that's what the show is about. We need to talk, and we need to find platforms and topics to talk about. That's how we build South Africa. Kendall, ultimately, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I could not agree with you more, even.
Well, let's do some work now. Here are your top stories. Gauteng's MEC for Community Safety, Sizakele Nkosi Malobane, has visited Karabo Mokwena's family in Deep Cliff, Soweto, ahead of the slain 22-year-old's memorial service later today. Reappointed Eskom CEO Brian Molefa's position is now in doubt after the ANC ordered Public Enterprises Minister Lynn Brown to rescind his appointment by the Utilities Board. And the search for more bodies will resume this morning after at least 24 illegal miners died in an underground explosion at the Eland Shaft mine outside Welkom. That's in the Free State Goldfields. Those are your top stories right now. Let's get the headlines in sport from Kendall.
Thanks very much. You know what? I can't remember another show that hit me as hard as this one is hitting. It's been one other show, but you know what? I think before we end the show today, we need to give people a hotline to call if they're involved in anything like this, be the abuser or abusing.
Yeah, either way. And you know, it's so easy to flip the switch in today's world because we're all under pressure and we're surrounded by negativity and by negative forces and agents also here in South Africa that are well on top of us. It's easy to lose it, you know.
No, fully, 100%. And I think this show is as lit as they come. Good morning to you. This is what we've got for you in the sports today.
Because I think Changase was just holding him back.
The upset premiership is coming to a crack of an end as both log leaders Bidvest Wits and defending champions Mamelodi Sundowns need a win tonight to gain the advantage over the Yellow.
Then make his way forward and make his way forward with aplomb. 3-0, just too easy.
In the English Premier League, both Manchester City and Arsenal are just one step away from Champions League places for next season.
Ozil, it must be, it is, it's Alexis Sanchez.
Meanwhile, just days ahead of the French Open, an interesting twist in Rome.
Ladies and gentlemen, due to an injury, Ms. Sharapova is forced to retire. Game, set, match, Lucic, Baron.
Maria Sharapova retires from a second-round match at the Italian Open as she gets denied a wild-card entry into Roland Garros. All this and more I've got for you later on the Sports Bulletin. Be sure to stick around for it about 10:40 or so. For now, stay with Evan for the news.
Yeah, thanks, Kendall. Kendall will be back, of course, as he pointed out, at 10:40. But let's go now to our top story. And, well, it's a story that's half South Africa sitting up talking. Friends and family of Karabo Mokoena will remember her in a memorial service that is expected to be held a little bit later today. Mokwena's burnt body was found in the northeast of Johannesburg last week. Mokwena's boyfriend, Sandile Mantswe, has been charged with her murder. The 22-year-old's death has sparked nationwide outrage about the scourge of gender-based violence here in South Africa. Meanwhile, Gauteng police have set up a task team comprising 16 detectives to probe the spate of killings of women over the weekend. The death toll of women murdered in separate incidents in the past couple of weeks has risen to 10 following yesterday's positive identification of 3 more who were killed this weekend. The task team was established to deal with crimes against women, including a spate of robberies, rapes and kidnappings that happened in Soweto recently. 5 bodies were recovered in Gauteng, 1 in the northwest, another in Limpopo, 2 in the Free State and another in KZN. That's over the last 4 weeks alone. The distraught families of 2 friends who went missing in Johannesburg on Friday were at the Naledi mortuary yesterday, painfully identifying their loved ones. Now, to what degree does legislation protect women and other vulnerable groups in our society? To discuss this, we are joined by the Deputy Minister of Justice, live from Cape Town, John Jeffrey, this morning. Mr. Minister, very good morning to you, and thank you very much for joining us.
Morning, and thanks for having me.
Mr. Minister, talk to us about the protection that legislation gives women, especially women in abusive relationships.
Well, we have the Domestic Violence Act, which got passed in the late 90s. It basically allows a person in a relationship, domestic relationship, to approach a court, a magistrate's court, and get a court order forbidding the partner from assaulting or abusing them. It's an order that's given sort of very quickly initially, an interim order, and then it can be made permanent if the magistrate considers that it should be, and the other partner doesn't give in evidence explaining why it shouldn't be made permanent. So it's basically a piece of paper, a civil order, but if that order is broken, then that can result in the police arresting the perpetrator. You know, the biggest problem, so that's the Domestic Violence Act.
Yeah.
It's grown quite exponentially. The figures I've got from 1st of April last year to the end of last year, that there were 287 hearings on the Domestic Violence Act, of which about nearly 189,000 were new matters. It's increasing every year. A few years ago, it was about 100,000 per annum, so it's gone up now to nearly 189,000.
Mr. Minister, all of this said, and wonderful that we have the law frameworks protecting us, but a woman in South Africa is 5 times more likely to be killed by a partner than the global average. And this talks to some of the complaints that we hear this morning on the show from victims and the like, who talk about police don't take them seriously when they go to report these kinds of crimes.
Look, I think if there are complaints against the police, those complaints need to be reported so that action can be taken against those police people. The woman would go to the police to make the initial report, and then if the partner breaks the order, they should go back so that the police can arrest the person. You know, but I think it's essential, if there are problems in the system, report them so that we can correct them.
Well, the numbers tell us that the conviction rates of men accused of this kinds of abuse and even femicide are quite low in South Africa. How do we overcome that challenge?
We are trying to improve the prosecution of sexual offences matters by doing things like building sexual offences courts, special courts where it's easier for a victim of sexual abuse to testify. And there is priority obviously given to these kinds of cases. Generally, it's not too difficult to solve an intimate femicide case because it's known it's the partner, or the partner is often very easily implicated in the matter.
Are you happy with the work? Are you happy with the work that our presiding officers in the courts are doing with regards to domestic and gender violence issues and the imbalances that exist, one would think?
What do you mean by the imbalances?
Well, in handing down judgments, men versus women, it's sometimes not reported, the pressures, financial and otherwise. Do you think our presiding officers are well on top of this kind of thing?
I would hope so. If there's a problem with a judgment, it can be appealed against. We do also have minimum sentences, which is basically to guide, I suppose you could call it, presiding officers, that certain cases are particularly serious, and in such cases, a minimum sentence of life should be handed down unless there are, you can't completely curtail the courts unless you can find compelling reasons why that minimum sentence shouldn't be granted. So, you know, but obviously a presiding officer is limited, a magistrate or a judge is limited by the evidence that's brought before them. Yes, one of the problems with the case, with domestic violence cases, is that there is an imbalance. The number of domestic violence, once a domestic violence order is made final, it's permanent forever. The number of complainants of women who come and ask for those orders to be withdrawn is quite high. And one would imagine that they're under pressure from their partners. There may be, as I think you've mentioned, dependency on the partner for an income, for support. We do also have a program of trying to work out a personal safety plan for women so that they can escape that abusive relationship. But a lot of the problem is this is all taking place in people's homes.
Yeah, and it's all kind of a little bit after the fact. We need to find a way to prevent a little bit better. Shouldn't we be thinking about these preventative processes, especially with young people, as we see these kinds of behavior even surface in our schools? Would you agree with that?
Sure, very much so. I mean, I think the law is there, the police, the courts, when somebody is killed, but obviously by then it's much, much too late. That person is gone. It's a life lost, as we've seen with Korabo Mokwena's matter. So the issues would be looking at helping women escape. There are also a number of centres that women can go to, shelters basically for abused women around the countryside, set up by social development. But I think the key question we need to be asking ourselves as South Africans is why are many of our men, or some of our men even, why are they treating women like a possession? So if he can't have her, nobody can have her, he'll kill her. How are we bringing up the boy children in terms of treating them to respect women? What message, how we treating young men, how are we training them to respect women? If men have emotional problems, do they feel there are places they can go to before they explode and kill their partner? Those are all some of the things that we need to be looking at.
Mr. Minister, thank you very much. Before I let you go, I just wanted to finish the housekeeping. I wanted to talk about protection orders, and gender activists are on my case. They tell me that, yeah, you should ask the Minister why there's a problem with protection orders, as they feel it doesn't offer enough protection.
I think the difficulty is what else can be offered. Once you've got the order, if the person you've got it against breaks it and puts the victim at risk, the complainant at risk, then they can be arrested. Obviously, we can't have a police person guarding every person who's got a protection order. We just don't have that number of police people. So that's really the difficulty. Yeah. These crimes are taking place in the home. They're taking place by people who are the partners of the complainant. Maybe just also to say, just to mention while I've got the chance, we have been running a campaign on intimate femicide. There are a number of people who are assisting us who have been victims of domestic abuse, and we're using them to champion the issue, to try and persuade women who are subject to domestic abuse to get the confidence to come out of that relationship. We are also going to be looking at, which was one of the recommendations of the United Nations rapporteur on women, a femicide list so that we can properly categorize where women are killed by their intimate partners.
Mr. Minister, thank you very much for joining us here on the Newsroom show today. That is our Deputy Justice Minister here in South Africa, Mr. John Jeffrey, coming to you live from Cape Town. Now, of course, we've been asking you the question. The question that we've been asking you is, South African women are 5 times, yes, 5 times more likely to be killed by the intimate partner. Yes, by the intimate partner. 5 times more likely. Your views, you guys have been tweeting us. Let's have a look at what you guys are telling us. Pauletta Opulent says, the Newsroom, we men sometimes don't think straight and indeed regret later when the situation is unchangeable. Yes, there's an element of alcohol and other substances also in the mix sometimes. Patrick tweets us, he says, Newsroom, all mothers must learn their child to know how to talk to men, especially when they are drunk. Maybe they should teach them not to drink in the first place, Patrick. This one from Motlan Tua. Cecily, who says, Newsroom, a real man cannot love and hate. It takes time that we take the law into our hands to deal with the situation. How do you take the law into your own hands? Jauchelo tweets us, I can't say women deserve this, but they should start not relying on men for the expensive hair and cheat on them, because that's what causes this. If men pay for your hair and then you cheat on that man, they'll kill you, he says. Wow. It's all about the hair in the end. Anyhow, we move on. The SABC is before the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, SCOPA, about the irregular expenditure that we've seen here at the national broadcaster. Let's go there live.
I'm interested in the board and the officials. For them, it's their responsibility to give account of the things that we we want to get answers to. And we have got quite a long list to be able to attend to the board. We really want to thank you for the minute and out of yourself being patiently listening and being able to explain to the members of the committee what is going on. We really thank the spirit of how we have presented yourself here, but the rules doesn't allow us to hold you for a very long time here.
All right. Yeah, let me hand over to you if there are issues that were raised that you would like to respond to. But I'm sure quite a number of the issues that were raised, the engagement that we're supposed to have now is supposed to be actually dealing with those matters. Yes, comrade.
Thank you very much, Chairperson and honorable members. When I was talking about the need to take people through all legislation that speaks to the proper keeping of records, the management of records, how our records are archived, was not to mitigate for the weaknesses that exist or the criminality that permeates in the system. I was merely articulating on the basis of what I have also found in the SABC as a weakness of internal controls that deals with the management of documentation. I do not want to move from the premise that documents disappear because people are inherently criminal in their activity. When I asked for other people, other managers to be called at a lower level on the exact same issue, what I discovered was that there really is a problem other than that of criminal activity in the safekeeping of documents and record keeping. So I did not move from a point of suspicion, but I just wanted to deal with matters as they presented themselves to me, not on what anybody had said, what I had observed. Because that people could have stolen documents is something that I will not say is true or not, because I have no evidence to that effect. But what I do know is that documents do disappear. And whether they've disappeared because of not understanding, but lack of appreciation of what enjoins people in law in the keeping of records, documents, and the archiving of such. So it was not in mitigation for any weaknesses or acts of criminality, Honorable Smith. I fully concur. And if I were to act on rumor, it's rumor that I have also heard, even after 2 days that I was appointed, that which you talk of actually does happen. But at other levels, it is really because there are problems of non-appreciation of the fact that records are to be kept in a particular way. And again, if you look at the Labor Relations Act, the Labor Relations Act enjoins you to assist staff to understand their role in organization and whatever obligation is placed on them on their appointments. But I do understand where you're coming from, because you have dealt with these issues. On the acting CFO, Honorable Hlengwa, you are correct that if she's sitting here today as the acting CFO, it is illegal. Or maybe it is irregular that she sits here as the acting CFO if there is an acting CEO that has been appointed. If the acting CEO is appointed, what should have happened was that it should have been brought to my attention, and it should have been sent to me for concurrence for the acting CEO. The board would have brought that to me for concurrence. Maybe it's a glitch in the system, but you are correct. That's what should have happened. I should have gotten a formal letter so that I concur with, or do not concur with the appointment of whoever would have been appointed as acting CEO. And you are correct, then Aguma should have assumed his position as CFO immediately when that would have happened. But I'm told that it's for a week. But I must emphasize that when I started to speak on these matters, I did say that in one of my first meetings with the board, I emphasized the fact that we need to get a caretaker CEO. Even if it's someone seconded from a department, from the Treasury, from one of the the SOEs, but we needed to get an acting or caretaker person from outside. And unfortunately, we did not get to that, because I did lament the fact that everybody there is acting. And for you to stabilize an entity, the first thing that you need to do is to regularize your posts and regularize appointments. And I was hoping that by now we would have had all of the people that are acting back to their original positions, so that where there are vacancies, we fill them timelessly. But I must emphasize that I had requested that we get a caretaker CEO, because for me it was untenable. The issues that you raise, Honorable Ntabisi, the things that you raise are very true. That if you had an ad hoc committee sitting to look at all the problems of the SABC, Honorable Smith, as you led that process, in my personal view, as a former head of department, and I'll take off the head of minister, that in itself is irregular. Where you find that under Ayanda's watch, there were problems of weakness of internal controls and certain unsavory things introduced in the system, Ayanda does not have the competence or the integrity to act as the head of an organization. So that was wrong from the onset. That's why when I spoke to the board, I was very clear to say, please get a caretaker until such time that you, as caretaker CEO, until such time that you've appointed someone permanent. On the treasury issues, initially we had written a letter which we subsequently withdrew, requesting a guarantee from the Treasury. The minister then called us and said, that's not where we should be starting. What the Treasury would be interested in is to ensure that systems are properly in place before any decision could be taken, that we would have determined where the weaknesses are, where we can cut down on expenditure, where we could sell if we have to sell assets that are non-core to the SABC. So in essence, he was saying to me, bring me a more tangible, evidence-based document that will help me to help you. And he didn't want to commit himself to a bailout or a guarantee before any of that was done. But he also said to me that it might not even be necessary for the Treasury to intervene in the form of any of the two, whether a guarantee or a bailout. But it might just be necessary that we talk to the banks to extend the revolving facility. Now, we are still in the process of finalizing all of that. A funding request has been sent to me by the SABC. And again, Chairperson, what I had raised initially when I was talking was that it's important for the board and myself to understand that their work goes beyond just the ad hoc committee recommendations and their implementation. Because we still have the issue of moving from analog to digital. And what was presented to me does not take account of that fact, that we are moving from analog to digital. And therefore, the funding request does not cover all of those things that are related to the migration from analog to digital. So to me, it was a funding request that was inadequate. It was almost like putting elastoplast on a wound and not actually treating the wound. And I'm looking at treating the problem that we're experiencing in the SABC. They have done their work, they've done the best that they could, but I must say the best was not good enough because there were issues that it did not cover. I could have presented that funding request to the Treasury, and next week I would have had to go back again and request for further funding, especially for the public service mandate of the SABC. So I decided to hold back on that and ask them to do more work. The board and the team from the department are looking at determining on the assets register, which is in itself, by the way, also a problem, Honorable Smith. But looking at what we can find in the assets register, on what we can dispose of, that is not core to our business, and many other areas where we could cut costs or shift or postpone large procurement. So there's a lot of work that the board and the team are still working on to ensure that we come up with a document that is a little more convincing for the Treasury to assist us. I'm not sure if, well, I know that the board will concur with me. In our first meeting with the SABC executive, the issue of the extent of the dire financial situation in the SABC was not brought to us voluntarily. We had to dig for information before the word came that we actually are in a serious financial situation to a point where we might not be able to pay salaries. It was never brought to me at least, voluntarily, and I can safely say even to the board. It was never brought voluntarily. So I don't know whether it's fear or it's deceit. I really don't know what it is, but it's just that thing where the SABC always wants to withhold information. And I think because the management team is here, people must understand that we're not here to catch anybody out. In fact, we are here to try and resolve issues at the SABC. If anybody is caught out, that's a byproduct of the work that we would have done. But the primary objective is not to catch anybody out. The primary objective is to ensure that the SABC is sustainable and it delivers on its mandate in a cost-effective manner and in an efficient way. So that's my response to the issues that have been raised, Chairperson.
All right,
Thanks very much. Thanks very much. Tim, what was the question you...
There was no comment on the suspension of Mr. Guma.
Oh, okay.
The Minister's thoughts on that?
No, that's fine.
As I had said, Honourable Member, earlier on, I'm not going to call for the suspension of any staff member in a public forum. What I will do is to take to heart what you have said, and to take to heart your statement in support of your call for a suspension. And the board will act in the correct fashion. And also, you need to take to heart the statements that I have made about internal weaknesses and internal controls the withholding of information in the SABC, and be assured that I will do the right thing to support the board in its work. Thank you very much.
Right. Thanks, comrades. I think maybe that is the first concrete position of the committee around Mr. Aguma. Technology is good. Even if it's in Kampala, we can call or send emails to say, come back. Right. Thank you, Comrade Minister. Comrades, what we're going to do, Comrade Vincent. No, I'm greeting you. I mean now. I'm trying to check if we can have an arrangement. Either we allow the board to talk to us, and then we engage them thereafter, because we need, in my view, we need to get a sense of how are they grappling with these issues. Because in as much as Aguma or whoever might not be there, but we need to engage with these issues. You know, cheaper way. You know, like they say in my area, when you eat an elephant, it's one piece at a time. So even these issues here, we're going to deal with them, but dialectically enhancing the forward movement processes. So I would suggest, comrades, that maybe let's allow the board to talk to us, and then we can then engage. I'm sure we all have all these mountains of documents with us. And I was talking to you because I think there was something specific we said you need to look at. Yes, Comrade Vincent?
No, I agree, Chair, that the presentation and the board should lead us.
Okay.
The only qualification in terms of your suggestion, Chair, is that we don't open it up to everything, because I thought today we're dealing with irregular, fruitless, and financial management. If they're going to lead us, as I see the presentation on the overhead, then I have no problem. Indeed, they should lead us, and then we should ask for clarity and deal with it, and not be tempted to talk on all the other matters, because there are a whole host of other matters that indeed we could take advantage of because of their presence. I'm saying there's going to have to be a fine balance between the two. That's all. But I agree. Let them lead us. Chair.
All right, Comrade. I mean, unless we don't agree, if we agree, can we move on?
See, I'll just...
No. Comrade Kekane's hand was up first, then Chilwane, then yourself, and Comrade Kekan.
No, Chair, I also agree that is with that approach, and only re-emphasize the fact that there are questions that we asked, and you said they will deal with those questions, if they can also include those questions.
Oh, correct. Comrade Chilwane.
Chairperson, it was for the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, for the questions that we asked.
No problem.
Maybe
Tim?
if we can start with them, Chairperson. The status of Aguma, if we can just know.
Okay. Tim?
Chair, yeah, I agree with what my colleagues are saying. I just don't want to be limited in terms of scope, because I do have 3 or 4 questions that might not fall into the documents, but they'll be very quickly handled. But they are very, very salient to our inquiry.
Yeah, no.
But they're not going off into the distance. Just
no, that's fine. I think all is saying is not in terms of their content, but in terms of our focus. If it's all about financial management,
it's all about
financial issues.
Then financial issues, yeah. It's not policy.
No, it's fine. Thanks. Klengwa, do you have your hand up?
Sure,
I'm not tempting you to talk.
No. I was going through the invite, the notification of the meeting, that we are supposed to in fact be receiving a briefing, sort of hearing, because there are outstanding matters which we had raised previously when they were here and when with the SABC. Maybe if we can first complete that. I'm in agreement with you that in fact I don't see why you put the question, but thank you for being democratic.
You know, it's socialist democracy. I always engage the masses of the committee. All right. No, that's fine. Deputy Chair, can we, maybe let's start with the issues that the comrades had raised. This little confusion that should not have happened about an acting GCEO and my sister here as the acting CFO, and yet Aguma is no longer the acting GCEO. What?
Okay, thank you, Chair. On Monday, when we met with the Minister in preparation of this meeting, Mr. Aguma was not there. We were told at the meeting that he had gone to consult a doctor. By yesterday, we got information that he has actually been put off for the whole week, which meant that he was not going to be here today, amongst other things. So the chair then dropped everything and went to the SABC, constituted the rest of the executive team, and tried to find out if there were urgent things that needed to be approved by the group CEO in the interim, given that this guy was not going to be there for a whole week. Then she consulted the delegation of authority framework. And in terms of clause G4 of that framework, if an executive is going to be away on sick leave for an extended period, the chairperson of the board is authorized to appoint an acting person in that space for the duration of the absence. In that respect, this is different from appointing an acting person on a kind of permanent basis. This is about the guy's not there for a week, for 3 days, but things may need to be signed. So this is how Tsidiso came into the picture yesterday at between 4 and 5 p.m. as a stand-in for the week.
Yeah. No,
so James is still the acting in terms of the framework and the authority that was delegated to him the same day that this committee was at the SABC. Because if you remember, we were at the tail end of the delegation of authority for this team. Immediately after we spoke to you, we were kicked out of the SABC by the former minister, who said because we had not been vetted, we had no business to be there. And as soon as we were kicked out, the executive team that was acting had their acting authority extended for another 3 months. So that acting power is still in place. I hope it makes sense.
No, it does.
Yeah.
Are we fine now, comrades?
No, Tsidiso is not here because really he was appointed at about 5 o'clock yesterday. I was in the plane by that time. If we were going to get him here, he would have had to have flown this morning, be here by 9.
All right, okay.
What would he say anyway?
No, that's fine. I think the point is made. We understand that it is not appointing an acting person in a quote-unquote permanent. I think that was the little confusion.
Yeah.
But I think it's now cleared. Can we then proceed?
Then there was the issue about the filling of vacancies.
Okay.
The ads are out. They were in the papers on Sunday. The ad is also out internally. We've advertised for the group CEO, for the COO, head of radio, and it's got a complicated name and surname. executive, audit, chief audit executive. Yeah. So those are the four positions that were advertised on Sunday. There was the issue about the suspension that James needs to be suspended. I think, through you, Chair, the committee should allow the board to act legally always. It would be amiss of us as the board members sitting here to start pronouncing about...
I don't think that was the expectation.
Things like that.
No, that was not the expectation, Deputy Chair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because part of the problem that puts us where we are here today is because decisions of that nature were taken arbitrarily.
No, Chair, I think.
I just wanted to make it quite clear what people were just dismissed on the spot, and then the SABC incurs huge costs.
I understand.
Jumping from 4 million to 60 million a year.
It's okay. I understand that. I'm just saying that should not be attributed to us.
But on a point of order, Chair.
No,
Chair.
No. Let me finish. No, let me finish.
On a point of order, Chairperson.
Yeah, let me finish.
No, Chairperson.
I must.
No, Chairperson.
Point of order.
If I ask for a point of order, you must give me. What's wrong with you now?
No,
Chairperson.
No,
Chairperson. Chairperson. No, Chairperson.
What is the point of order?
Yeah, just be patient. Why are you emotional now? Just be patient. We're running a committee here.
No, it's fine.
No, just wait, Chairperson.
Let me hear you. What is the point of order?
Hear my point. I'm saying to you, both of you, Chairperson, when he is talking and you are talking, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make the committee to have a good standing. If you are saying, as the chairperson of this committee, you want to talk, he must be patiently waiting to you. And we can't conduct the meeting between you on the basis of friendliness. It must be run in a very professional way. If you are talking, he must give you a chance. If he's talking, he must give you a chance. This committee is about us. It's not about the two of you.
All right. Okay. No, that's fine. I'm chairing. If he's talking and I feel he's going out of the line, I must stop him.
And he must listen.
Exactly. Because the point he's making, correct as it is, cannot and should not be linked to us. Because we're not asking the board to act illegally. So the explanation and the contextualization bore no relevance to what we had said before. So I just didn't want that point to be labored on as if we were expecting the board to act illegally. I think, let's not go on and on as if we have done anything wrong or expect them to do
Chairman, I have a point of clarity.
Yep.
All I was asking in that question is that the board takes it on board, that they will consider the evidence that I referred to. The Minister has taken it on board. She said she would give it great due consideration. I would like the board to do the same thing, to consider the evidence that I referred to and not to delay in their consideration of the matter and make a decision urgently in the interest of the SABC. That's all I asked for. Just a consideration.
Chair, I think we have agreed that we have closed the issue because what we are hearing now is contrary to what you said. Please, let's close the issue.
Right.
There was an explanation earlier on. We accept the explanation. We are saying the board must deal with this issue. Let's close it there.
All right. No, that's fine. All right. Deputy Chair, can we proceed?
Get to the meeting today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for calling us. The invitation was specific about a particular contract, and we have prepared a presentation that revolves around that particular contract. We've also brought with us sufficient executives who will be able to assist the committee with answers around these matters, because there is also a context of how things have been happening. So I will not I've already explained why the chair is not here. As the board, we are confronted by an institution that is really limping. There's an atmosphere of fear generated by rule by decree. Things were just dictated. And so even now, when you are a new board and you're trying to do certain things, you find that people don't really believe that that is the new way to do things, because it has not always been like that. So there's a need to reverse all of those things because they permeate even into the financial sphere, the editorial sphere, and all sorts of things. As the minister has already indicated, we have submitted a funding application. We are taking, as the board, a thorough look at a number of contracts, including the one that the committee has called us to discuss today. We've called in the SIU to do a forensic investigation into a number of areas. Some other areas are going to be done by internal audit within the SABC. As I said, we're searching for new leadership, and we're looking at ways of rolling back detrimental consequences of decisions that have been taken before. This would include even things like 90-10 and 80-20 on television, where radio has lost 29 million, TV has lost 183 million. We've spent 72 million additionally in sourcing new local content to displace the content that we could no longer use because we were enforcing the 90-10, which 90-10 is not really a policy because it was never debated at any board meeting. It was just a directive that from now, this is how you're going to do it. And it's a good policy in that it promotes South African products, but its implementation has to take cognizance of the fact that it must not threaten the existence of the institution itself, which is what it is doing. So the detrimental impact will be dealt with. It doesn't mean that there is a rejection of being pro ourselves. So Mr. Krish Naidu chairs the audit committee. John Mattison is also in that committee. So I'll now hand over to Krish to talk to the committee about the kind of work that the audit committee has been doing, and in particular around this, this thing. And then when Krish finishes, he'll hand over to the acting CFO, Audrey, who will take you through the actual presentation around the Sekela Kabiso contract. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just to start by saying that if you look at the invitation that you've sent us...
And would really want the presentation not to... So let's be focused, because I think the gist of our engagement will arise from the questions that will come from members.
So shall we go to the presentation?
No, I'm just saying, let's be focused, let's be brief.
Yeah. Now, I was referring to the presentation just to say in my opening remark that you're going to be very disappointed with the presentation, because I think when you visited the SABC on the 28th of March, you had a different expectation. If I recall, the service provider was present in that meeting, and they gave you certain undertakings that there would be, by the end of the term of the contract, they would be able to identify wrongdoers. There would be some steps towards consequences such as recovery of funds, etc. And I think you left with that impression, and that's why your invitation says, give us more details about this particular contract and also tell us what steps have been taken. Now, when I looked at the scope of work given to that service provider, There was no such intention in that direction. There was no mandate given to them to recover any money. Their job was purely to classify and identify irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure, and that's exactly what they've done. So this presentation will tell you what they've done. But what we've said to management in our interaction in preparation for this meeting is, once the Auditor General finishes its task by the 31st of July, so in early August, we expect those consequences to kick in as expected by the committee. The second thing we've done as an audit committee chair is that we've stressed the whole issue of consequent management very, very strongly. And I think one of the weaknesses of the SABC has been, if you look at the 5 billion rand of irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure that's been accumulated over 5 years, that's the first signal or indication that there's been no consequences. That's the first point. So when we mean by consequence management, at our very first meeting of the audit committee this year and under the interim board, we made sure that executives that report to us are prepared to take personal responsibility for their reporting. For example, if we said to the SCM head that if you come to us and say there was no irregular transaction in the month, we have a monthly meeting, then if it transpires subsequently that there was some consequences or irregular conduct in your department, you accept personal responsibility in terms of the PFMA. The second thing we want to stress, and that's something that came from one of the members, is that you get executives moving from entity to entity without consequences. You know, we must now enforce the new provisions of the Companies Act to declare directors delinquent directors. You get executive directors on boards of SOEs. They must be declared delinquent directors so that in future they cannot hold a position anywhere else in the public sector. And that's one way of cleaning up the entities. In our presentation, Chair, we've given you some indication of the contract between the SABC and this company called Sekela Kabiso. We've got some detail in here, the scope of their work. We've also got a report on what they've done so far. We've also alluded to the kinds of challenges they've had. And in preparation for this, as board members, what we've said to management, there are certain critical questions that they have to answer. We can't answer for them. And that is, why in the first place did we move from in-house management of this task to a consultant? I mean, that's a critical question to ask. Why did you engage a consultant in the first place? Is it because of insufficient capacity in-house or for any other reason? So that's the first question. The second question is that if this consultant has been going for, I think, more than 2 years now at a cost of 25 million rand, it only come to our attention as audit committee on Friday last week. We were told all along that there was one contract worth about 9 million rand. But on Friday, when we took stock, we were told that there were 3 different contracts given to Sekela Kabiso in consequence, going back to 2015, and it added up to 25 billion rand. So these are concerns that I think management and the people that are here must answer. So thank you, Chair. With those few introductory words, I'll hand over to Audrey, who will take us through the presentation. Thank you.
All right, Acting CFO.
Thank you very much, and honorable members. I'm a bit challenged where to start because Mr. Naidu has done most of my presentation.
No, start from the beginning and give details. He was summarizing.
Okay, the request that SABC received from Scopa was the detailed information regarding Sekela Kabiso contract. We've circulated the 3 contracts that the board spoke about. And the second request was the status update of the report up to date, including the recovery so far. The contract that we have with Sekela Kabiso, the scope was to assist SABC to detect irregular, fruitless, wasteful expenditure from 2011 financial years, assist with the preparation of an accurate and complete register, assist with the preparation of the notes into the financial statement, provide the support during the AG audit process, and assist in identifying procedures and processes that need to be implemented to make sure that we have preventative measures in place. Mr. Naidu has already explained the misunderstanding that the committee had when they came to SABC in terms of what the scope of the contract was all about. So the background of this exercise and irregular fruitless expenditure comes from the external audit opinion, which from financial year 11 and 12 was issued. In 11 and 12, the qualification was about poor documentation. 12-13, again, it was poor documentation. 13-14, the opinion was poor documentation and misstatement of the note. 14-15, it was the understatement and also poor documentation. 15-16, we're back to this misstatement and poor documentation. So in SABC trying to resolve the qualification, initially in 12-13, the work was done internally and it was not concluded. In 13-14, the work was continued to be done internally. Again, it was not concluded. It is then on in 14-15 that Sekela Xabiso was appointed for a period of 3 months. And again, because of poor documentation, the note was not completed. In 15-16, Sekela Xabiso was again engaged to continue with the work that started in 14-15. By the time the audit report was issued, the amount of 5.1 billion was disclosed. Again, it was not completed. And in 2016-17, another contract was issued so that the 5.1 billion can be confirmed as irregular. And it is the work that is continuing up to date. Why Sekela Xabiso was appointed is because there was lack of sufficient resources to undertake the engagement. And because of the documents were not centralized, there was a problem in putting the documents together, because once the note has been disclosed, we need information to support that information. But because SABC in the past, every division was doing its own supply chain management or procurement, the documents were sitting all over the show, and to be able to put everything together became a challenge. The retrieval of those documents became impractical. The method that the Sekela Xabiso used, they went from the payment documents to the procurement documents. The payment documents could be found, but the procurement documents are still a challenge up to this stage. And as we go into the presentation, we will show you how much of those are still a challenge. The balance between daily operational duties and and the detection of fruitless and wasteful expenditure detection was also an issue. SABC had lacks of skills and expertise to detect irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure, and up to this stage, we still have that problem. And it's for those reasons that Sekela was asked to come and assist the SABC. And the value of those contracts for 3 years is 25 million, as reported earlier. So the approach that they are following to be able to make sure that by the time we report at the end of May was to be assisted by supply chain management to centralize all documents that are required to substantiate the note, to assess compliance with supply chain management policies, including Treasury guidelines, the PPPFA, to test compliance of procurement processes according to what the SABC said has happened, to look at alternative identification of electronic document, to cross-link all payments and expenditure to the files that have been tested, and to prepare the notes for the financial statements. we've already spoke about the challenges that have been faced in terms of finalizing the exercise by the Sikela Klabisa. Chair, we have looked at the note in two ways. There's note that relates to content, meaning the procurement of television programs and the normal supply chain programs. And for the last financial year, up to this stage, this is how much has been identified. For 2016-17, we have identified 63 million. For 2015-16, 240 million. For 2015-16, it's 424 million. However, included in the amounts that have been identified, there is information that is still being tested because there was insufficient document as of yesterday. But we hope by the end of this week we will have tested everything and confirmed the amount, because we are close to finalizing our financial year end. And if you look at that slide, most of the irregular expenditure came from the fact that there were no valid tax clearance certificates. In the past, the supply chain rules of SABC were requesting service providers to submit copies of tax clearance certificates, which is not allowed by PPPFA, and until we can confirm that those clearance certificates were valid, we classify them as irregular. With normal procurement, for the last 5 years, for 2016-17, we're sitting at 583 million.
Chairperson, my apology. Yes. If she can repeat that one of the tax clearance, I didn't quite get her.
The old policy of SABC, and I need to clarify that policy has since been reviewed and approved by the previous board last year. There was required that when you submit for your program or for any procurement-related issue, they requested a copy. But if you look at the tax clearance certificate itself, it says a copy is not valid. So the PPPFA said you need to submit a valid tax clearance certificate, so a copy is not valid. So if you don't have an original, that's irregular. Okay, continued with normal procurement. For 2016-17, we're sitting at 583 million. We're still validating 100 million of that. For 2015-16 is 802 million. We're still validating 293 million of that. For 14-15 is 675 million. For 13-14 is 367. And for 12-13 is 280 million of that. Now, if you take all of them together, Chair, if we're able to validate all the documents, by the end of March 2016-17, we'll be sitting with irregular expenditure of 5.1 billion. And the bulk of that irregular expenditure of 5.1 billion is relating to no tax clearance or invalid tax clearance of about 2.4 billion. Moving to fruitless expenditure. Last year we had reported an amount of 92 million of fruitless and wasteful expenditure, and with the expression of Auditor General, there was an amount that we had to reverse of 21 million because it was not relevant to the fruitless and wasteful expenditure line item, and that amount was restated to 70 million. What I need to emphasize is that most of the fruitless and wasteful expenditures, as far as SABC is concerned, relate to impairment of television programs that we could not show, which GE television will be able to explain further when questions arise. And just a bit of it relates to penalties that we receive on travel. So up to this stage, we have a closing balance of 74 million relating to fruitless and wasteful expenditure. With the process going forward, by the end of this month, we'll be submitting the information to AG for auditing. At the end of July, we expect AG to have expressed an opinion, and then from the 1st of August, the consequence management starts with the forensic investigation, the SIU, and the recovery and condonation from the board. To be able to sustain improvement of the internal control environment in the SABC, SCM policy has been reviewed to make sure that it complies to the relevant legislation. We've also looked at our IT infrastructure, electronic infrastructure, which is our subsystem, to make sure that it assists in stopping some of these transactions from going through, because there's a what we call procure to pay process that needs to be followed. So we want to make sure that if one step has not happened, the process doesn't go further than that. The SCM policy that has been approved has been workshop with everybody. The delegation of authority has been reviewed, and with the new board, we are continuing with the revision to make sure that it complies with the laws of the country and the policies of SABC. And we will be continuing with training of our bid committees, because the bulk of this irregular expenditure came from procurement of goods and services through tendering processes. And we're making sure that the learning and development has a skills audit that will identify whether we have relevant skills in supply chain management that will assist in making sure that we are able to firstly prevent irregular, fruitless and wasteful expenditure, and where we have not been able, we are able to detect and report as required by the Act. And make sure that when people are appointed within SABC, we take them through all the process that are required, including the supply chain management policy of the organization. As Mr. Naidu has reported earlier, the following contracts have been referred to the SIU to make sure that irregular expenditure is correctly identified and accounted for. Is the contracts with Infonomics, Mott McDonald, Asante Sana, Foxton Communication, and Lizef Consulting. Oh, forensic audit. Sorry, Chair, that one is for a forensic audit. The one that is going to SIU is the contract with Lona Vision, contract with Vision View, contract with Sikela Klabiso, and all other fruitless and wasteful expenditure incurred between April 2012 and March 2017. All appointments, promotions, and salary increases of employees and bonuses paid to employees in contravention of human resource policies of the corporation, and arising from the recommendation from the public protector, the final report of the ad hoc committee, and other specific matters brought to the attention of the board. And from there, Chair, we'll take the questions.
All right. Thank you for your presentation. I think the process of, except for the recovered so far, ban should have been processed so far, and that process was not referring to Sekela Klabiso, because whatever work they do, they submit to the SABC, and it's the SABC that must process. We were asking you. I see you have answered that to say, well, after the AG's report by July, from August, you will be looking at those aspects. Now, let me give Comrade Vincent first, because I requested him to look just at the contracts, few contracts, and then we can then deal with any and every other thing. Yes, Comrade.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, if I could start by referring to the presentation page that says value for contracts, the 25 million that you spoke about. Unless I've not got all the documentations, Chair, have got a contract for 2014 contract, December 2014, a contract April 2015, and a contract March 2016. Actual documents, those are the documents that I have.
Can you repeat the dates?
All right. I'm looking at the bottom. When I say, first of all, these things have no signature on most of them, but I'm looking at the date at the bottom and I think you call it the foot. Is it the foot or something?
Yeah, I just want the date.
No, there's one that says December 2014.
Yeah, just.
And I'm taking the dates from the footers, Chair.
No, it's fine. I have the documents.
Because the cover page that I have are all identical.
All right.
So at the bottom here, it says December 2014 at the bottom there. Oh, let me give you the contract number. Sorry, let me use the reference number. Sorry, Chair, thanks. The first reference number ends with 9774.
All right.
And that is 2014. And then 10288, that's April 2015. And I have the final one of 11433, which is March 2016.
No, it's fine.
May I proceed, Chair? Oh, must I repeat the numbers? There's one that says SABC reference number 409774. And that one has December 2014 on it. If you look at the footer page. SABC reference number 409774. Together? No? 9774. No, the 1433 is March 2016. That's one I have. But that is March 2016. Then I have another one of 10288, which is April 2015. You've got those documents. We've got them.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
They've got it.
Let's go into the content.
No, Chair, yeah, I was raising that and referring to this page here. So if they don't have it, it's going to be difficult. But let me raise the points that I have. If you take the document...
Which page are you in their presentation?
The one that says value for contract. The 25 million that they referred to. I think it's about the 7th page or 6th page.
Okay, yeah, all right. No, that's fine.
I'm trying, Chair, to reconcile the contract with the document that they presented to us. That's the exercise that I'm trying to because the documents that I have, the contracts, and if these are the only legal documents I have, Chair, don't come close to 25 million. And that is why I started by saying the 2014 one shows a 4.4 million.
Where is that?
2014-15 shows a 4.8 million. And the 2016 one shows a 1.1 million. Those are the signed contracts that I have before me. 2014 is 4.4 million. If you look at the 0.611 on that contract. The April 2015, if you look at 0.611, has 4.8 million. And if you look at March 2016, on 0.8.1 of the contract, it's 1.1 million. And I'm saying, Chair, I can't reconcile this to the figures that are there. So I'm saying that's the first question that they would need to answer to me, because I'm not sure where they got the 25 million unless there's documents that they've not given us, or unless they've paid over and above the documents that we have.
Can I assist? I think the problem is not with them, although of course it is their problem that they gave to us. There is a contract of December 2016, which is valued at 9.8 million. The reference number ends with 2126. Now, the problem that our secretariat was settled with, they were sent documents and documents withdrawn and others sent, I think even yesterday. Was it yesterday? Where is it? Day before yesterday, yes. I was still getting a complaint about documents that have just arrived. I have an email from the SABC saying disregard contracts of December this, March this, and
Discussed the one before.
oh yeah, that sent.
This is now prevailing.
Right, that sent certain contracts, and then later sent us a note to say ignore those, take these, and I think in the process of compilation, that is where they might have been lost, because here I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm sure I have about 5 or 6 contracts. So I think they are correct. It amounts to 25 million if you add this one, which you don't have, of 9.8 million.
That was my first point. So, Chair, I will take it that.
Okay, just a minute, Comrade Shilwane.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just to talk on the issue of documents, Chairperson, I hear that you're saying maybe it might be at our part. But we have a problem, Chairperson, with documents that are not coming forth. Like, for instance, that email that you've just read, that they will send a document and later withdraw it. It makes it difficult for us to follow and to work on, because we do read these documents, Chairperson, and I think we've been saying this in all our meetings, that the issue of document need to be sorted out. Because you can see, Chairperson, if somebody say this document, I'm withdrawing it, I'm giving you this one, then it means that the intention is just to confuse us. And we're not going to be confused, Chairperson, because we are not confused.
All right. I'm sure the point is
made.
Please,
Chairperson. And I think because this is a public hearing, everybody is open to viewing this meeting as it goes on. We urge that whoever who's going to come to the committee, please, they must just give us proper documentation. It's only fair, Chairperson.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Comrade Kuno, but I want Comrade Vincent to continue. Yeah.
Before he continues, Chairperson, just to add on what Comrade Shulan has said, I mean, whether they've been withdrawn, the documents have been withdrawn or being given, this is still SABC. So the information that they are giving with what you have and agreeing with what they are saying, which it tallies, and then where does this come from? And these amounts that are written here, is there, maybe, I don't know if you are thinking about the way we're thinking it. Don't you see that there's something sinister about it? That's why, I mean, we're trying to solve a problem, like the Minister has said in her opening remarks earlier on, that we have a problem with SABC. So if we don't tackle the problem and deal with the root causes, I don't think we are going to help each other at the end of the day. There is a document with amounts on, Chairperson. So what do we do to this document? Because it is from SABC, and this was part of the budget. So how does it, we need to understand, how does it correspond to what she's saying right now?
All right. No, I think, well, at least unlike last time when the documents were sent at night for the meeting of the following day, this time at least we did have some bit of time to process a little bit of Comrade Vincent, but I hear you.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, when you asked the SABC to introduce who's here, the head of supply chain management is here. And the head of forensic, I think, or something like that is here. And Mr. Aguma was headhunted from the from the Auditor General South Africa, specifically to deal with these matters. He was headhunted to deal with these matters. And yet, Chair, the SABC goes and appoints this organization to do what these two gentlemen, not necessarily themselves, but their officers, and what Aguma was supposed to do for 25 million rand for 9 months, or however long the time is. I think they will have to explain that to us, Chair. So that's the first point that I wanted to make. The second point that I wanted to make, Chair, just as a general before we get into the details. You know, the motivation for consultants is because they are in possession of scarce skills or specialized skills. You can't get a consultant because I have that in my department, but it's too much. Then I work overtime or I do something. But this organization was called to find missing documents for 25 million rand. Missing documents. This organization, Chair, to taking your words, ma'am, were appointed in 2014. Because they didn't finish the work, they were appointed again in the next year. Because they didn't finish the work, they were appointed again the next year. But in all these instances where they didn't do the work to have to be reappointed, we paid them. We paid them. And yet we didn't do the work. So I'll add these three and then they can respond to them. The final one, just around the broad principle, Chair. Unless I don't have the documentation, and I think I would refer to your words, Deputy Chair, where you said there was a culture of dictatorship, or dictate, your words, when you started off. I have not seen a document where this organization went through an open tender. In fact, I read in one of the minutes that a decision was taken by the GCEO or the CFO that thou shalt appoint so-and-so, in one of the minutes that I have here. So, on what basis were they appointed? Was it an open tender? Number two, why do you continue to renew their contract? They haven't finished the work and yet you pay them. And thirdly, if we have forensic, we have supply chain management, we have a CFO who was brought into this organization from the Supreme Audit Committee in South Africa, or Supreme Audit Institution in South Africa, ostensibly to do this work. That's what he was appointed for. And we went to appoint somebody over and above that. If they could just try and unravel those things for us. Because I think Aguma has been there for the past 4 or 5 years. I'm not sure when he joined, but it certainly can't be that there was that gap because Aguma was there. And yet these people continue, 25 million rand. And as we speak, they still haven't paid it, Chair. So I've got a difficulty, and I'll take the blame, or we should take the blame because we don't have the final contract. But as my colleague said, we get these things at the last hour, so don't blame us for not having it. But I just think that everything to do with this contract was against all prescripts. If they could just explain those things to us. Yeah, the payment, the appointment, and why the necessity to do it.
Right, the appointment, the payment, and then I think the gentleman and lady at the back can maybe talk about the necessity. How necessary was it?
Thank you, Chairperson. As you correctly pointed out, we've got the head of SCM here. We've got the head of forensic audit here, and I think they will be able to explain or try and explain why we switched from in-house working on these matters to engaging a consultant, by the way, without due process.
Thanks, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable members. Perhaps if you could indulge that I give a little bit of background on how procurement operates within SABC.
As long as it's not a long background.
Oh, sorry. It won't be long, Chair. I'll just make it quick. As indicated by the acting CFO and earlier by the Honorable Minister, the issue of document management is a challenge. But let me start it this way, Chair, so that I can create the picture and then you can see where we are, why we are where we are. Procurement processes in the SABC happen across the organization, as the acting CFO had indicated. Now, in other instances, this is what I could use the words as institutionalized procurement processes happening outside of a procurement or SCM unit as such. And I will give an indication to that. Some processes are informed by convenience as they happen outside of SCM as such, and would get to know about them as SCM after the fact. There would be some that will be situational when business units or department find themselves in a situation where they need to, perhaps on agent basis, and I'll explain the provisions that would be invoked from time to time on situations that might warrant a procurement process happening outside of SCM as such. The one that would relate to an institutionalized process would be, which has been reflected as well in one of the slides from the CFO, the issue of content acquisition. And there's a specific policy that deals with commissioning of content. Now, that activity happens outside of SCM unit, but it is a legitimate process that happens. Of course, one might then say that within...
You are taking too long.
Okay, am I?
You are taking
okay.
too long.
The other one would be, because you see, it's gonna link chain members into where we are, so that we can have context to saying, because... Okay.
Yep.
My brother, I thought that they are coming to a meeting to report, and we are just soliciting from you not new information. That story you gave us there in the SABC, don't start again. Answer the question directly, because I've got the bid committee minutes here, and I don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to challenge you on your facts that you're putting. So don't give us a background. Give us facts. What is exactly going on? Don't give us a long story here. You told us that story in the SABC. We know what you're talking about. We know the story of Sikala, Kabisa. We know it definitely. We know what has been going on. We have listened to that background. Answer what the member is asking. Don't give us history.
Yeah, no, I think let's just. I think and I was actually thinking that you would actually say no. We don't know why our seniors took the decisions they took, but I see you want to drive into a lot of things. The issue is, and I think maybe the people sitting here in front with you could be the ones who can actually assist on why certain decisions were taken, to look for an outside company to maybe recall how they were appointed, and even the payments, because just to expand, comrades, if you look at the contract that Comrade Vincent does not have, the December 2016 one. Okay, this one says they must investigate irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure 2014-15 to 2016-17. That's fine. But if you look at the other two, they all say investigate irregular expenditure 2010-11, 2014-15. So which means within that time period, you then charge 4 million. Then at the end of your contract, you have not finished the work, Then they give you another contract to do the same work, and then it's 10 million. So I think that's what is asking, and that's why I'm saying maybe the middle management, that side, may not know how the senior managers came to take those kind of decisions. Unless if you feel you can tell us something.
Okay, thanks. Then to cut to the chase.
Just a minute, yeah.
Chairperson, I do respect you. You see on the SABC minutes of the audit committee that took place on the 25th November 2016, this thing, Sekela Kabisa, and the confusion that is there, and the infighting that is taking there, I can show you, I can submit. The whole debate took place, and the infight amongst themselves, even when Matthew has to intervene and how they came to that decision. This lady is misleading us, Chairperson. There's a lot of controversy and infighting that took place there. And he knows for a matter of fact, and she was not even the CFO, that detailing that relationship within this particular document from the SABC. If you want me to submit it,
what is the date of those minutes?
The minutes, Chairperson, is the 25th of November, 2015. 25th November, 2015. Status in terms of clearing the internal and external audit and
all right, which page? I have them.
I'm reading it to you.
Okay.
It says 2.1.
Oh, all right.
That's where the debate is taking place, Chairperson, extensively. The CFO took members through the status of the clearing of the internal audit and external audit and disclaimer issues and highlighted the salient points. And the topic goes on and on, the Chairperson. It's not even closer to what he's trying to lecture us about. And that's the meeting that I would say to you would show to all of us that there has been confusion and infight amongst themselves in the SABC.
I see now, yeah. The third paragraph.
Yes, Chairperson.
Talks about the
CFO reported to the project in respect of the detection of the historical irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure had been put on hold due to an internal controversy surrounding the appointment of Sekela Kabiso, Pty Ltd. He informed members that he had approached the GCOS, Mr. F.L. Matlala, at the time, but he had not acted on that matter. He subsequently raised the issue that with the acting GCO, J.B. Matthew, he stated that it goes on, Chairperson. So I don't know what he's talking about. We have got your minutes, sir. Don't tell us about institutional stories. Tell us about what happened. Ma'am, you are misleading us. You see. And this is recorded by
you. Corporate Vincent. You. Yes, Lengwa and then Ross.
Chair, the minutes of the BAC of the 18th of November on page 16.
Wait. 18th of November.
Yes, 2014.
Yeah. Which page?
Page 16. See, what I want to understand, I heard that story in Johannesburg. So and it was before we'd received this. And I'm wanting to build on what Honorable Boyce said. The perception presented was that, or what had been presented was that Sekela Kabiso was requested to come in and investigate irregular expenditure. Because you gave us this thick document, this one here, of all sorts of things, speeding fines, failure to attend to pitch at the airport, hotel accommodation, and all sorts of things. All of this is irregular expenditure. Sekela Kabiso was coming to tease this out and probably will find more. But on the minutes of the I think it's the honesty. That's what meaning I want to know. Now, your own minutes, the minutes chair. After a long narrative, here's the approval given for a deviation from the normal procurement process. And I'm reading now resolution 18/11/14, BAC 303. Resolved that approval be and is hereby given for the deviation from the normal procurement process to enter into a contract with Sekela Xabiso for a period of 3 months from 18 November 2014 to 17 February 2015 at a total cost of 5 million rands exclusive of VAT to conduct a forensic investigation into television and all marketing areas within the SABC. Is now the unearthing of irregular expenditure this? The point, Honorable Smith has asked the fundamental questions. Go to the point of it, did they actually undertake what they were sourced to do?
I think, Comrade, let me hear Comrade Kuno first so that we can then, no, it was Ross and then you. Yes, Ross.
Chairperson, just to flag in terms of the value of the contracts, my recollection of what happened on the 28th of March when we were in Johannesburg. When I posed the question to James Aguma specifically, sir, can you give us an indication as to the value of the contract? He then indicated he did not know. And he pointed to a lady sitting in the middle there. I recollect this very vividly. And she had to give us some figures. Now, I'd just like to alert Mr. Smith to this. He's quite right. It's very difficult to reconcile the value of the contracts with the documentation. But that lady gave us an indication it's about 4 or 5 million, if I understand correctly. I don't know whether it was perhaps somebody sitting here in the room. And then as we walked out, I asked, I believe it was the AG, whether that was the full amount and whether it was correctly disclosed. And I recollect very vaguely, and this is informal, no, there's a lot more. That's what I recollect. But we are shocked as a committee today. We are totally devastated to hear that the amount is 25 million. Now, this is a deliberate attempt to mislead an oversight committee of SCOPA, if that is the case. And I have sympathy with Mr. Smith, trying to reconcile documents with the values. I think we as a committee, and to listen to other submissions, it doesn't make sense where there's a clear indication of non-compliance in terms of supply chain management, that we should take a decision that we should be informed in terms of our forensic investigation, whoever, and then the outsourcing of an in-house institution to Sekela and those guys to do further investigations. I can just say this is an absolute duplication of the role of the AG. And I think the Honourable Smith that day said he will not allow the AG to be second guessing in terms of this. To appoint these people as an outside source to do the investigation was putting an already constrained entity that cannot pay the staff, which there was no admittance of a crisis, into a much more serious crisis. And if that amount is 25 million, I think we are dealing with criminality to the extent that it's unimaginable. And Chairperson, I as a committee would recommend that we take some decisions as to what exactly we would like to hear and what we would like to take action on. Thank you.
First question, Comrade Kuno.
Thanks, Chairperson. I agree with my
Boy, did I see your hand
colleagues.
up? Comrade, okay. Yeah, continue.
I agree with my colleagues, Chairperson. Heads have to roll. What they are saying. In fact, one of the ladies from Sekela, yeah, Xabiso, she's also from the Auditor General's office. She was a senior executive in the Auditor General's office. So it's a but you know, Chairperson, that's why there are withdrawal of documents that are already given. There's something that people are hiding. I think the fear that the minister spoke to in the morning and what the deputy chairperson has as well, it's going to go on and on. But I have a problem. I don't want to repeat what they've said because I agree fully with them. I have a problem when an internal auditor, when he, are you internal audit? Yes. when he opens a statement and he says that documents are not filed properly, you cannot shift blame. Much as I agree that Agoma is a problem, but it's not the sole problem of SABC. And you cannot shift the blame. Where are your documents as internal audit? Whatever, whether you have been given job, work, or you are not given work, but you should have your own documents that you have filed. So if we shift blame, we are not going to solve the root causes of SABC. So I'm just saying that we have a problem, that we have all agreed that we have a problem. Let us address the problem and let us try to be as honest as possible, at least the senior managers that are here. Thanks, Chair.
Yes, Comrade Boy, then I'll come to you, and then...
No, I just thought that, Chairperson, you know, it's very nice to read about Sikela Kabiso. You see, it says still on the minutes there that he stated that this is now Mr. Matthew. He stated that he had advised Mr. Matthew that in the event that the issue was not resolved, the SABC would receive an audit qualification. Sikela Kabiso was required to determine the irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure from prior years for proper disclosure, and the Auditor General to sign off on the amount. He stated that the SABC did not have the internal capacity to resolve the irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure issues, and was of the opinion that there was a conspiracy to prevent the appointment of Sikela Kabiso. That's what you know, ma'am. It's not you telling us the truth. This is the state of this contract that you're trying to mislead us about, that you think that we should believe in your presentation. You were fighting about it. It's not us who are fighting. And more as it go forward, you couldn't even agree because you're putting the others. The CFO stated that although the COO had approved the appointment in accordance with the requirements of delegation of authority, the legal division has refused to release the contract until they had obtained approval from the head of procurement for the deviation. Ms. Watwat responded that she was unsure about the conspiracy to which the CFO referred to, and that she did not receive contracts with a value of less than 15 million. This is the fight, ma'am. You are not telling us the truth. And no, don't tell us you are not there. You were doing a presentation, and you make us want us to believe. And we told you that we know what is going on in the SABC. And we're not even quoting we're not listening to you. We're telling you that Agoma ran away because you knew that we have got facts about what is going on in the SABC. And you came here to come and mislead Parliament. And you knew that we came to the SABC. And the commitment that we made to help you, you are moving away from it. You are misleading Parliament. And that poor gentleman doesn't know that we do have. He doesn't have to tell us the institutional arrangements say we have got facts. We know what is going on in the SABC. And these are the facts. That Sikela Kabiso is a controversial appointment inside the SABC, not outside. So we can't take their report anywhere because they are appointed on a wrong mandate. My colleague there is talking about something also in your minutes, in different dates. How can we listen to you? And this is the interim board is supposed now to be aware that we do know what is going on. And you are sent on a mission to come and be seen and be that you are in conflict with Parliament. And that's not what it is. Agoma has run away from these minutes because he knew Sikela Kabiso is a wrong appointment. That's why it's at 25 million today. And that is the disaster. And that report can't be authentic because they themselves are not authentic. And that's where our problem is now.
All right. Okay. I want us to, we must decide what we want to do with those questions because they need to be responded to from their side. Comrade Chilwan.
Chairperson, we fully agree with what you are saying. Unfortunately, you know, these matters, they would want us to speak more. Because, you know, unfortunately, Deputy Chairperson of the interim board, the booking off of somebody who's not at work has compromised us to be here we are today. Because that is why, without speaking like we are doctors or whoever, we'll say, unfortunately, Mr. Aguma did not want to come and account, because everything that has happened, everything that you are doing, has had to happen under his watch. And I don't know, Chairperson, we had an arrangement as with the Hawks. As our stakeholders, I haven't seen them in our meetings. Because for these reasons, Chairperson, we need them to be here. Because this is purely corruptive issues that have been taking place in the SABC. And we just need to set an example. We cannot be sitting here and be seen like we're lamenting over nothing. But where there's proof that something has went wrong with the public funds, Chairperson, I just wanted to raise, Chairperson, that issue.
Okay. Okay. Comrade Mente, and then Comrade Kekane, and then we...
Chair, thanks, Chair. Chairperson, if I can take you to the page where it says value of contracts with Sekela Xabisa, and you do the maths. I just want to show you the criminality on this thing. And you do the maths. 2014, 2015, it's 4.7 million. 2015, 2016, for 8 months, it's 10.3 million. So 10.3 and the one below, it's not correlating. Now, you take the one in 2016, 2017, it's 9 months. It's more than the 8 months, but it's less amount than the one that had more months to do the very same work. It was just numbers being pasted or numbers given. Take this money. It doesn't matter how much work you have, but we'll just give you, you are our channel of financing whatever was being financed at that moment. Now again, let's go to the contracts. The contract of 2015, and you compared them to the minutes of the 2015 meeting. The contract of the SABC was signed April 2015, the one of 2015, but the BAC that approved the contract, that approved the tender, said in May, you first sign, and then you instruct the BAC, go sit and just do whatever it has to be. Just a matter of process and documentation. You first sign, and then the body that is supposed to decide if we take these people or not sits after you have signed. It doesn't make sense.
Okay. Comrade Kekan.